NDP urges government to recognize Palestinian statehood, while the Liberals want to send it to a committee to debate. This is the Grey White North Report. Well, the NDP are at it again. They're urging the government to recognize the Palestinian statehood and sanction Israeli officials. They're also seeking a two-way arms embargo and a ban on military trade with Israel. Why do they want to punish Israel so badly? The answer is simple. The NDP are looking to get the Muslim vote in an upcoming election, whether it be this year or in 2025. Most Muslims over here in Canada will support the Palestinians, or will support their fellow Muslims over the Israelis. For some reason, Jewish people just set Muslims off big time, and you just have to look at the Islamic sources to understand why. But that the NDP see no other way to survive as a party but to pander to a large group of people, and that is in Canada the Muslim population, which thanks to our liberal immigration policies, we've allowed to take root here. It boggles the mind why we allow the people who are very anti-Semitic, very anti-feminist, and very anti-LGBTQ to come to this country. Most Muslims are very conservative people, but they will vote NDP or Liberal because that's where those two parties will throw the most money at their communities. That's the only reason why they vote that way instead of voting Conservative. It's quite simple. But the NDP are useful idiots to the people who run the so-called Palestinian Arabs. Hamas, Hezbollah, Fatah. People like Heather McPherson, she is a useful idiot to them. She would rather recognize the people who have no distinguishable qualities as a whole. Not saying there's not remarkable individuals within, because there are. There's no nation there's no people that are good and bad. It's not that there are shades of gray, but as a whole, their reputation is terrible in the Arab world. Other Arab countries do not want them. Black September in Jordan. The Jordanian government killed tens of thousands of so-called Palestinian Arabs and threw the rest out. Forced them over to Lebanon. And guess what happened to Lebanon? They're the main reason why Lebanon is now a failed state. Egypt does not want them. They've caused problems in Egypt, them and the Muslim Brotherhood. Saudi Arabia does not want them. Syria does not want them. Kuwait kicked them out after the first Gulf War because they supported Saddam Hussein. Only Iran backs them as a means to destabilize the region and gain influence. The Abrahamic Accord that was signed during Trump's presidency, Kushner went over and got several countries, Arab Muslim countries, to recognize Israel. Most Arab countries realize that with the way green technology is going, that oil is going to be not so precious a commodity as it is now, or was. Many Arab Gulf countries are oil dependent. They depend on oil for all their revenues. When we no longer need oil as much, then they have nothing. And that's why they're trying to diversify. And Israel is one of the keys to diversifying. Israel has diversified their economy so well and adapted so well to conditions that they are learning from Israel. Israel is a democratically elected country. 1/5 of the population is made up of Israeli Arabs who would otherwise identify as Palestinians themselves, but no longer do. They're not protesting massively in the streets or rising up because they know they have it so good in Israel, as opposed to what Hamas and Hezbollah and the West Bank Fatah party have to offer. They know. They're not stupid. So the NDP is urging the Liberals to recognize Palestinian statehood and say that a conservative government would not protect international law in the Middle East. What international law? Hamas went and crossed the border and murdered 1,200 people and took hundreds more hostage. Even dead bodies were taken as hostages. And the people in Gaza celebrated. The people in the West Bank celebrated. Other Muslim groups celebrated Other groups celebrated across the Muslim world. Iran did. Does that sound like a really nice society to you that follows international law? It's against international law to take hostages. Yet you expect the Israelis to bow down to that. They had to respond, and they responded. It's a declaration of war. So I think the NDP should shut up, sit down, shut up, and get the Liberals, maybe vote for a non-confidence vote to get the Liberals out of government and call an election. But they're afraid to. Jughead's not going to call an election. He's not going to do it. He's going to lose his pension, and he's going to lose his seat in the next election because he's not very popular in his own riding, the one he parachuted into. The Conservatives are very close to supplanting him right now in that one. He's not a popular guy. So she accused the Liberals of lacking moral courage and political will to advance the Trudeau government's stated goal of advancing a two-state solution. What is a two-state solution? What are the boundaries? How are you going to enforce it? Do the NDP expect Canadian soldiers to be sent there? Give your head a shake. Thank God the NDP never get into power. That would be the worst thing a far-left party gaining power in Canada would not be good. She said Canada ought to recognize Palestinian statehood before any snap election. Poilievre has been leading the polls for months, and McPherson argued the party has been uncritically supportive of Israel. Is a democratically elected country. They have a democratically elected government. They're a westernized country, and they were attacked. They are defending themselves. McPherson is just either she's naive or just, again, political pandering. What would be considered the two-state solution would be a failure. Hamas, the Gaza Strip had a chance when Israel unilaterally pulled out and allowed the people of Gaza to choose their path. And the international community gave them a boatload of money. And what did they do? They elected a terrorist organization, Hamas. They used all that money for infrastructure to build underground tunnels and rockets. Everything was left for them. They had a chance to become the next Nice or Monaco, or even San Marino, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein. Instead, they pissed it away. And over in the West Bank, Fatah, corruption was rampant. In retrospect, they should have settled all those refugees from the 1948 war, should have been settled on the West Bank, when the Jordanians still controlled it. But no, they were kept in refugee camps. If you look at a refugee camp now in the Gaza, it's pretty modern. It's not tents. They're in apartment complexes. They got supermarkets and malls. They're the wealthiest refugees in the world. Protecting the rights of Palestinians. What rights? They have no rights in their own areas. They're run by thugs, terrorist organizations. They celebrate death. Now they want a two-way arms embargo, one that would go beyond barring new arms permits and actually block all military trade, including goods arriving from Israel, which would also, we don't have much of a military industry here. It's fledgling, like General Dynamics and Armatech, as well as a couple others here in Canada. And we don't sell that much to Israel. In fact, we sell more to places like Saudi Arabia. We sold drones to the Chinese Communist Party so they can spy on their own people and put Uyghurs in concentration camps. And the U.S. government has proposed buying Canadian arms and sending them to Israel, something Foreign Affairs Minister Julius said is examining. The United States, first of all, we're sending most of our stuff to Ukraine anyway. We don't have that much to give. Israel could easily get it from somewhere else. The NDP want us to sanction certain settlers in the West Bank by imposing a ban on far-right ministers in the government of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Well, if we do that, then what's to stop other countries from banning our far-left ministers like McPherson and Jughead? So the two-state solution, as far as I'm concerned, is dead. I would rather propose that Israel take full responsibility for Gaza and the West Bank and run both like a territory, kind of like Puerto Rico and Guam in the United States. Because they can't govern themselves. That would definitely stop a lot of violence, I think. It would give, within a territory, you have self-autonomy. You can, just in foreign affairs and relations and in military, no, it's the Israelis. and they don't get to vote in the National Knesset. Puerto Rico does not send any representatives to the U.S. House. They don't vote for the president. I think they have one representative that goes there as a special case, but other than that, no. And it should be like that. They vote. Puerto Rico and Guam, they vote for their own local officials. Now, of course, CBC does their due diligence and says that Israeli strikes killed more than 270 people in Lebanon. How much have Hezbollah strikes killed in northern Israel? The pager explosions were Hezbollah. Militants, most of the people killed are militants. They hide among a civilian population. The NDP should shut their mouth. The Liberals want to go through a Commons Committee to debate motion on quickest path to Palestinian statehood. No, we should not do that. The debate should be closed right now. Until they learn how to conduct themselves properly, then no. Quite simple. Why are we rewarding a terrorist organization like Hamas? That's not the way to do it. The NDP says there's no time for debate because they know there's an election coming, and they don't want it behind closed doors where the Conservatives will stymie it. The Bloc Québécois, I don't know what they're thinking. When they have problems with immigration too, and they have their ban on the hijab and stuff like that, on religious symbols, they're not exactly, I don't know what the hell they're thinking. The establishment of the state of Palestine is part of a negotiated two-state solution. We don't have a dog in that bone. We should shut up and stay out of it. But the NDP want an immediate recognition of a Palestinian state, despite the fact that there is no Palestinian state. And of course, CBC runs off the Hamas-run health ministry's numbers of how many Palestinians have died since October 7th. Of course, they don't distinguish which ones are militants and which ones are not. It's one of those things. It's amazing. So my point of view is that we should not recognize Palestine as an official state because they haven't behaved themselves and they need to change their attitudes. These so-called Palestinian Arabs are just like Nazis to me. You know, I know the difference between the Nazis and the Palestinian Arabs are when Hamas and Hezbollah kill Jewish people, civilians, these Palestinian Arabs celebrate it. Publicly and openly, they celebrate. They dance in the streets and do a lot of things. When the Nazis killed Jews, and they didn't do it openly. They put them in concentration camps far away from the German public because the German public would be horrified if they knew the full extent of the atrocities the Nazis were committing. Most of the death camps of World War II were in Eastern Europe. Treblinka, Auschwitz, Belzec, Sobibor were all in non-German lands. Only one, Chelmny, whatever it's called, was in Germany at the time. And that was in Eastern Germany. That's the difference between the so-called Palestinians and the Nazis. One would celebrate it, the death of a Jew, the other would hide it. So in my mind, the NDP should shut the hell up, vote non-confidence, let's get rid of Trudeau, and let's see where we are in the elections. Because the Canadian people are so sick of Jughead and Trudeau. It's time for a change. But any Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think of the NDP running their mouth off with Palestine. Is this just a political stunt, or do they actually mean what they say? Leave comments in the comment section. I really want to hear from Canadians. And until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.